Good evening, and well, it's obviously quite late in Japan. Good morning um, to people in the United States, and in Israel, it's in the afternoon. I have spoken with some Israeli people today, but anyway, I have to say that today's topic is about the it was about the propaganda at some point. I was discussing with Colonel Zamir over. I have to say that the staging. Well, it has to be. It started with this hostage. I have to say that how just everything turned out, and it is the propaganda of Hamas was cruel. Well, it included cruelty, inhumanity, and all those aspects, and also a huge amount of lie about. Well, it targeted Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they do this the whole time, and it became so obvious that now it's a real propaganda that they need to use. They are clinging to it. So I have to say that, I don't think that, I don't, I will not say that, I would support Prime Minister Netanyahu if I were an Israeli. I'm not an Israeli and I should not be saying this, but I do support Prime Minister Netanyahu as a Japanese, and there are reasons for it. And well, we talked about how to deal with all the situations, basically. How everything should have gone. Well, that's a hypothetical issue, and at the same time, I I hope that people do not get our discussions too personally, because number one, it's a personal discussion, and also, I mean, I'm not, we're not ignorant, but I would say that it's more objective than people think, and also at the same time, we have our personal views, but we have to be objective at the same time at the situation. So it may be a little bit, uh, Colonel Ransomere gave a very frank and very straightforward opinion about how to deal with the terrorists, basically. That was like how the government should treat the terrorists, and basically those people uh, are invading the country, and that's what they are doing right now. And even though we watch this propaganda video, nothing changes the fact. And also, I would say, if you don't know how propagandas are made, like the patterns, several patterns, I would say that people may easily be affected. So it would be the best not to see it too much, or if we need. So okay, so
The press
yeah.
okay?
hmm So I thought that it was, when I first saw the stage, that was set to return
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
like the Bebas family and
Hmm. Hmm.
it's Oded, who was
Hmm.
killed.
Hmm.
That sounded like a real propaganda that, they have created for.
Of course.
And I mean, I was appalled at the stage setting. And also, I mean, maybe they put maybe like kufir as like the symbol of like the prey or something. And it sounded very cruel. And it just, the scenes of like all the, like coffins and like, it was like so terrible, I mean, and, but, I, I, in the news source, I often hear that, I'm not sure on what person, their information source is mainly from Al Jazeera for some reason. And what they say is that, like most of like the child prisoners, like probably under 15, are arrested without arrest, like proper, like prosecution process or something like that. And
Hmm.
I think that, and they are somehow like, trying to give like sympathetic impressions toward, those who have commit like heinous terrorist attacks in Israel. Like, I have
Hmm.
seen pretty many of them, like the victims, like of the stabbings, some of them don't,
Hmm.
all of them like appear, but I find this quite, I guess, I guess that, probably like people should know the reality of, people, you know, getting like I guess like people getting just, killed, like innocent, Israelis. There are innocent Israeli victims, but those news don't go, just throughout. You don't get to hear anything, basically, in Japan.
Well, let me start
Mm.
by describing the situation
Hmm.
and then analyze it with
Yes, please.
layers
Yeah.
because it is with layers that it comes in. You
Mm.
need to work throughout the layers, the
Hmm.
practical one, the operational one,
Mm.
the political one, and the
Hmm.
philosophical one. You have to
Oh,
go
okay.
through the ladder and understand how they all interact. But let's put the facts first.
Hmm.
The Hamas attack was done by the Nukhba terrorists. They are elderly people. I mean,
Oh.
not all, but they are all. None of them is like juvenile, okay?
Hmm.
And they attack Israel and get into the sovereign state of Israel.
Hmm.
Okay, we withdrew from Gaza in 2005,
Hmm.
left them to do whatever they want,
Hmm.
and they come into Israel uh,
Hmm.
with one purpose and one purpose only. They know that they cannot conquer the state, but
Hmm.
they know that they can wreak havoc, they can murder, they can rape, they can kill, and they can kidnap. And kidnap is important for them for this negotiation that we see now. Otherwise, they would have got nothing. Otherwise, what
Yeah.
would have stopped Israel from doing a lot of bad things to them? Okay, so that's what they do. And but on the second wave, we saw, and we have photos of that and movies of that and everything.
Yeah.
Elderly people, young people, all
Mm.
coming in because the fence is now open. The Nukhba terrorists have now taken over some army barracks,
Mm.
some settlements like Be'eri, like Nahal Oz, like others, and are committing murders, committing rapes, stealing, taking hostages.
Mm.
And these guys are coming in. Now, the Israeli judicial system
Mm.
has made, I I would I would say a mistake, but it's not a mistake because it was done deliberately. Uh, the Attorney General in Israel has taken upon herself to bring to justice all the Nukhba terrorists. This thing, by definition, is an act of stupidity. You don't need to do that, because now what do you have to do? If you're going to bring them to criminal court, you need to assign to each one of them the crimes that he actually committed. He raped that woman, not the other one. He killed that child, not the other one. You would have to match them one by one to do that. Right now, after what, 16 months of fighting, or 17, we are not even close to that. The judicial system simply can't do that. We should have said, look, these are unlawful warriors, because they do not represent the state. They do not come with uniform. They do not bear signs or anything and try to fight our military. They come and fight our civilians, our women, our children, and all that. And therefore, they are all deserved to a capital punishment without the need to bring each one of them as a simple criminal. This is where we are with all of them. And that should have gone with all of them, but we didn't do that. We, the Israelis, didn't do it because of a sick judicial system that has an interpretation of what is called international law. There is no such thing as international law, of course. It's just treaties and contracts and agreements and so on. They have, because of that, what they did is they try to bring them to justice in the way that you take a criminal that is accused of murder or something to do something. Nonsense. You should not go that way. This is not the right path. They all have to be brought in front of a military court, get their death penalty, and be executed in the time that we believe is the right time to do that. Okay? First thing. This is what happened on reality. Those that were kidnapped were only those Israelis that the Hamas could have taken. Old people, young people, kids, infants, babies, everything with all the spectrum. Okay? We got about 250 of them that were kidnapped into Gaza at that stage. Part of them wounded, part of them intact, part of them dead. And they took the bodies. During captivity, we see that they treat them bad. In terms of starvation, in terms of torture, in terms of rapes, in terms of everything else that happened. This is something that we should know that happened. And now comes the questions, what do we do? And when I listened to the video that you sent me, the understanding of this guy who was brought on the knees of a father that was one of the founders of Hamas, he says, you need to understand these guys in Gaza, all of them are Hamas, which is true. They are all Hamas. There is no one who is not. It's not that you can fight Hamas and leave the Gazans apart. This movement went into power by elections that were forced by President Bush at the time, and they were elected. They get support right now. Without support, such a terrorist organization could have not existed for a long time. They get support for various reasons. First, they had, if you look at the history of the Muslim Brotherhood, which Hamas is a part of, and the Jihadic Islam is a part of, the only difference is their method of operation. While most of them, like the Islamic Jihad and others, agreed with Hamas on the way to operate on 7th October, and they all collaborated. They have an understanding that we should not exist here, and they would put every resource available to them into killing us, not into building their own lives. That is an observation that I told you had since 1947 to the British Foreign Minister, Ernst Devin, and he explained that in Parliament at that time. This has not changed, and therefore we have a conflict. Now, what is it that we need to do and think of? On the practical level, I believe we should have been much harsher with Hamas. Indeed, we had the Biden administration that did not allow us to do that. Unfortunately, it was a bad administration that gave us a lot of trouble in terms of ammunition, in terms of means, in terms of international support, supporting the UN Security Council, and so on and so forth. That was a problem. We had to fight in spite of that. Now comes the question, okay, what are the restrictions that you put upon yourself in order to fight such an organization or a bunch of organizations like the ones we find in Gaza? And this is the first time, I think, in humanity that such a problem is being upheld. We had problems between nations. Even Germany and Russia, when they fought each other, it was between two nations. Indeed, a lot of cruelty took place there. There was a lot of Russian women raped by German soldiers. There is, I believe, 1 million German babies that were born out of rapes of the Red Army soldiers at that time. That was a total war. The Japanese didn't behave very nicely to the Koreans, to the Thais, to the Indonesians, all a big issue. But that was between nations. Now we have a bunch of savages and a democratic civilization that are in a clash. That clash is not going to stay limited to Israel if we do not eradicate it. It would go to other places around the world. It would come to Europe, it would come to America, it would come to South America, it would come to a lot, maybe even to Japan, although I think Japan is protecting itself in a better way right now. But that's what's going to happen. And the question that you have to put to yourself is, what are the rules of engagement between a civilization and a bunch of savages? And I'm going to claim now that a civilization needs to adopt two sets of values. The one that it behaves with the inside and with its fellow civilizations, okay? Not civilizations that are the same. Look, Israel and Japan are not the same, but these are two civilizations and they need to interact in a civilized manner. When you come to fight the barbarians, you do not have to put these restrictions upon you, because all the other side is doing is try to use them against you. He is putting women and children as live shields because he knows that it's within your values not to attack them. Forget about it. Forget about it. This is not going to work. He is kidnapping because he wants you to negotiate. Forget that. Don't negotiate. Don't discuss. Don't say anything. Simply go and kill them. Starve them. Kill them. Do everything. For example, when President Trump is saying to Israel, open the gates of hell on Gaza, what I understand from there is everything, starting with the terrorists that are in captivity in Israel right now. They should starve like our kidnappers are starved. They should all have death penalties that we will decide when to execute and when not. We will bring nothing into Gaza, no food, no electricity, no gasoline, nothing, water, nothing. Everybody will starve to death. We will open the Philadelphia corridor and let everyone who wants to go to Egypt. I'll give you two other ideas in a short while. Go to Egypt. We will conquer the entire Gaza Strip, evacuate all the civilians from there, everybody, kill all the Hamas. Whoever wants to stay underground will have to stay underground and die there. And that's it. And this is never going to get back to them, period. While we are doing that, every terrorist that we have released and we know his whereabouts should be killed. No matter what the collateral damage is, whatever that is, all of them. Anyone we know should be attacked. This is to open the gates of hell. Now, if President Trump wants to shut a gate, a door, a window, he can tell us and we will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, this is what we need to do. On a philosophical level, because there is no reconciliation,
yeah,
the only solution that is possible is a solution where we are not neighbors. Because if we are neighbors and they don't want us to exist, that would cause war all the time.
yeah,
So we need to understand, on a practical level, it is more problematic. You need the American support, otherwise you can't do that. You need the Israeli government to do that. The Israeli government would have to face its own judicial system that will oppose that.
yeah.
And that has to be taken care in Israel. It's a domestic issue, but it's an important issue to take care of. We need to change the chief of staff because the one that we have now will not be able to do that because he has resisted in doing that all the time. He has resisted the Israeli government. And he was not willing to put martial law in Gaza. And therefore, we cannot do that. Let's hope that the one that is coming on 6 March would be better. Okay, I'm saying that, and he's not a relative of mine, although we share the same family name, but we are not relatives. Okay, yeah, his last name is Zamir, my last name is Zamir, so but we are not relatives.
Okay.
I met him in the army, in the service, but that's besides the point.
Okay.
So we hope that if that happened, indeed, we will come back to the fighting and do that. Now, there are two options for us. Either the Americans, let's say, lease a piece of land in the Sinai Desert, just to get the impression, the Sinai Desert is about 2.5 times the size of Israel, of the entire state of Israel. So let them, and the Gaza Strip is only 360 square kilometers. Let the Americans lease a piece of land in the Sinai Desert, pay to the Egyptians. Even if Israel needs to pay it, Israel will pay. Put the Gazans there and send them to anyone who wants to take them as refugees, Europe, Turkey, Canada, Ireland, anyone who wants to take them, they will be able to fly from there. If this is too much of a trouble to the Egyptians, let's put them in the Israeli Negev, in our desert, give them a place, and Trump administration will make sure that they all go within the time of that administration.
No.
And then we will be able to send them out of Israel from our airports. It would even pay well to Israel to pay them to go, to actually bribe them to go, because this will cost less in money, in human lives, and everything for them to go. There is, philosophically, there is no reconciliation. Now, why are people in Israel opposing that? Because they cannot see that what they believed in for so many years is being faced with reality that makes it all a big lie and a wrong issue. Everyone who thought, look, what did Israelis thought in 2005? And I have the articles, the speeches, everything at that time. A lot of people in Israel thought, we will give them Gaza, and that will be a blooming place. A place in which there will be great restaurants for hummus and fish along the Gaza seashore with a nice promenade that everybody will go there. It will be a place for tourism, especially Israeli tourism, who will come there and bring them money, and that will be a blooming economy, and the people of Gaza will live happily ever after in neighboring as neighbors to Israel. Israel will keep supplying them electricity, water, whatever. We, I mean, at least I, who was on the other side, believed that whatever we give them is just a step that they use the means in order to kill us and try to get us out of here, because of what I explained to you in the last podcast.
Yes.
And that hasn't changed. But a lot of Israelis, including the press, including politicians, including academy, everyone was under the belief that that will be it. And if one rocket would be fired from Gaza, we will eliminate Gaza. That was the saying. Nonsense. You do not eliminate a place because of a rocket. You need something much more than that. Even the massacre of October 7 has not caused us to eliminate Gaza. It still exists with almost probably 1 million people there. By the way, the real number, I believe, is anywhere around 900,000 Gazans that are in Gaza. There are no 2 million, not 1.5, nothing. And we should encourage them to go. We should encourage them to go. And if they are not encouraged, we should force them to go because we cannot live next to them. Anything, any humanitarian aid that comes is being sold by Hamas to the poor Gazans who supports Hamas for money. That money serves for buying new terrorist means. So we are actually financing that. Stupidity all the way through. It doesn't work on the operational level. It doesn't work on the political level. And it doesn't work on the philosophical level. That you have a barbarians that do not obey by any law, that do anything that is considered atrocity by us, the civilized people. And we allow that to happen. Then we try to be very nice when we fight with them. So as to speak, we have to preserve our own I would say our own morality. No, our morality means that we take care of ourselves. That's the morality that we need to talk about. Not the morality of making sure that they, what they call innocent, although I don't think they are called bad because they're saying, they are kids, they're all that. Yes, they are kids, but those guys are bringing them as human shields, and therefore we are not going to take that into account. And a society can live and say, I have this set of rules for the barbarians, and I have another set of rules when it goes to there. Look at the IDF soldiers. They bear arms. They go to Gaza, they go to Lebanon, they use these arms very efficiently and in a very precise and deadly way. They come back home with the same guns. People getting into all kinds of fights. Nobody uses these guns. Why? The code in Gaza and the code in Israel is different. So society can actually live with two different codes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it sounds really that way. And like what you mentioned is like what I was like, I don't see, like I think that, as you say, like those who cross the border should be brought into the military court, right? Probably. So I thought that, but like it's I am just um at a loss at some point regarding why they want to like I heard yeah, by the way, uh like I guess like people like who killed Israelis are being, released into Gaza right now, and I hope that, um yeah, like I believe that, like probably what President Trump says will probably be efficient. Like, I mean,
No,
so
it will be efficient. The
yes.
point that people are getting released is because we made a deal because we want to bring our hostages back home. That is what we want. I'm not getting into the question whether it's the right thing to do or not, but that's what we want to do. And the price for that is complicated. It is, one, release a lot of terrorists with blood on their hands. Second, to redeploy the IDF within the Gaza Strip. Third, the policy of the Israeli government. Now, you have to understand the evolution. Look at things as a process. Back in the 70s, 50 years ago, when we had kids in Ma'alot taken hostages by a terrorist, we did not negotiate. We broke in, some of the kids got killed, and we released the others. and kill the terrorists. When we had the hostages in 76 in Entebbe, we went all the way to Uganda and did not discuss anything with the terrorists. That was the philosophy then. It was then changed. I don't get into the names of the prime ministers who did that because this is not the important thing. I'm not trying to put the finger on anyone in any side of the aisle. This is not the point. The point is that as an evolutionary stage, some prime ministers decided to release a lot of terrorists to gain a few of our kidnapped soldiers, civilians, whatever. That happened both from the right-hand side of the aisle and the left-hand side of the aisle. It's the same. Both of them did the same. But that was another stage. That is a stage that you can call a stage that sort of resembles. It's not the same because you're negotiating with a terrorist organization, not with a state. So that was like saying, it is as if we have prisoners of war exchanged. As if, because it's not the same. Now, in this deal, the last deal, we have put on the table two other things that no nation has ever put on the table. The deployment of its army, whether we go out of Gaza, whether we do not, whether we stay in Netzarim, whether we stay in Philadelphia, whether we not, and our policy, whether we stop the war, whether we don't stop the war. These are things that should not have been on the table, no matter what the cost. In my view, and people will criticize me on that and say, you don't have any relative kidnapped and all that, even at the cost of the lives of the kids. This is because I believe that in a nation's life, there are things that are more important than lives. And the fact that in order to reverse that, if we have to go back and fight, like people are saying, okay, bring the hostages and then go to fight. Yes, we will have to fight harder. Fighting harder means more casualties. More casualties mean more risk to my sons that are serving as combat officers. Okay? And to many others which are unknown. So the difference is between kidnapped people that we have their faces and everything, and those that will be killed later on. Now you may say, these are civilians and these are soldiers, and soldiers are aimed to protect civilian lives, which is true. This is what the army should do, and it failed to do on the 7th of October. So the army should put its people at risk in order to save civilian lives, including those of the ones that were kidnapped to Gaza. But that's not the only thing. There are a lot of civilians that are going to be killed by terrorist activities that are going to be made by those that we released. And these are civilians. And these civilians are going to be killed. We know that the Shalit deal has cost us a lot of civilian casualties. We know that they now try to activate buses with a mistake that they made in setting the clocks and everything. Horrible thing. This is going to happen to us because we are not really serious in fighting terrorism. And they know that. Now, they know that. That's why they put all this charade. They put all this staged issue because they know that that's going to influence at least part of the Israeli public opinion. That part is going to be very loud. That part is going to demonstrate. That would bring a lot of articles, media against Netanyahu and his government.
Wait.
This is the thing, because these guys on the left, yeah, because a lot of people get emotional. Say, look, what's going on? Netanyahu, bring them back. What's the issue? Netanyahu, bring them back. As if Netanyahu is holding them in his basement and he just needs to open the door and they will be released. Nonsense. What do you mean Netanyahu, bring them back? Netanyahu needs the Hamas to bring them back. Now, the question is how? Do you do that by negotiation or do you do that by fighting? Now, I believe it's better be done by fighting. Netanyahu believes it's better be done by deals. He's the prime minister. He calls the shots, and that's what he does. I cannot say I mean, if I want to be honest, I
Mm,
cannot say that he's wrong or this is not true. I only can say I would have acted differently. Netanyahu, in his books, said he would act differently. Let's say a place under the sun. He said something else.
mm,
But now he's facing that. He knows the constraints, he knows the situation. We
mhm,
either trust him to do the right thing or not.
mhm,
I believe that right now he's functioning well. I
mhm,
believe that he did not function well before 7th of October.
mhm,
7th of October was not his responsibility.
mhm,
But before the 7th of October, the fact that Israel was not prepared to war, and Israel needs to be prepared to war at all times, at all times. He allowed, during his years in as prime minister, many years, he allowed the army
mhm.
to become very small so
Oh,
that it cannot fight and win in two fronts at the same time.
oh,
He allowed a lot of generals that are incompetent to stay.
mhm,
He did not take care of the Israeli capability to produce ammunition of any kind. He gave
oh,
it all to the Americans. He did not prepare the Israeli rear,
mm,
the entire state, to be protected against missiles and
mm,
everything. He did not do a lot of things. He allowed Herzi Halevi, who was brought to him by the previous government,
mm,
just for this, just to make sure that he cannot do what he wants to do. He
mhm,
had still signed on his nomination as chief of staff. I
mm.
would have never done that.
No.
I mean, before the elections, I would have called Herzi Halevi and told him, look, if you don't get your name off and tell your defense minister Benny Gantz and the prime minister at the time that you are not going to get the nomination to be the chief of staff
Mhm,
in this, I would say, cheaty way,
mhm,
that means that you are an unworthy person. And
mm,
as unworthy person, I would not even consider your nomination when I come to appoint the chief of staff. And
mm,
I will never appoint you, no matter what. That would have caused Netanyahu to go into a fight with the Supreme Court in Israel. Because
mm,
the Supreme Court would have said, no, he got nominated truly by the previous government, you need to sign up on that. I would have gone to that battle. I would have also taken the head of the Shabak
mhm,
and sent the Israeli secret police, so to speak,
mm,
the internal organization responsible there, Ronen Bar, and I would have impeached him days after I'm in power, because I don't believe that he is a good guy. He is trying to make symmetry between the Palestinian terrorists and the Jewish terrorists, which is
mm,
ridiculous. He has an agenda. He was put in there in order to be the guy that would force Netanyahu
mm,
to act properly. How does he force him? The trick is the following. Let's say that the Supreme Court of Israel
mhm,
decides that Netanyahu can no longer serve as prime minister due
mm,
to whatever reason.
mhm,
This is an unlawful decision. It's
mhm,
not by the law. Okay, he can't do that. But
mm.
our Supreme Court does that every once in a while. It takes a decision that is not written in the law.
Oh,
What will happen the morning next to that? Netanyahu comes to the prime minister's office.
mhm,
At the door,
mhm,
there is a guy from the Shabak, from this secret service,
mhm,
standing there. Does he allow what he considers as Prime Minister Netanyahu to get in? Or does he say to the civilian Netanyahu, you cannot get in?
mm,
Mind you, Netanyahu was elected in elections and got the approval of the parliament
mhm,
that was elected by the people. The
mm,
Supreme Court, not elected by the people, nothing, has said that he cannot no longer serve.
mm,
What would that person do? He would not know what to do. He
mm,
would call his superior. His
mm,
superior would call his superior. Eventually, that superior would come to the head of the Secret Service, to
mm,
Ronen Bar, and ask him, do I allow Netanyahu to get in or not? And then if the head of this Secret Service is loyal to you,
Hmm.
he will say yes. But if
Hmm.
he's loyal to the Supreme Court, he will say
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So this is the test. And this is the reason that Ronen Bar was put in as the head of the Secret Service of the Shabak, because of that. In order to be a threat on Netanyahu, if you don't behave properly, we will impeach you together with the Supreme Court.
That's kind
So
of scary.
this is the, yeah, it is, but that's the way it works.
Oh, I
So
see.
this is the question. And
Hmm.
I think that any decision that you look upon today,
Hmm.
almost any decision that Netanyahu needs to take,
Hmm.
if he doesn't take the right one, it would bring him to a clash with the Supreme Court. And if he clashes with the Supreme Court, he will need to do something about that,
Hmm.
something. And he needs to decide on what grounds and on what issue does he
Hmm.
go for a fight with the Supreme Court. Right now, his decision, I don't fight the Supreme Court, I obey.
Hmm.
Even if they rule contradictory to the written law.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's where we are, and this is what preventing us from going in the way that this guy that you showed me on the video
Hmm.
thinks that we should go. Whereas we agree on the actions, we do not agree on what will be the results of them. What will be the let's say act of the nations? So
Hmm.
we need the United States when it comes to the Security Council, and everybody says,
Yeah.
there is atrocities going down in Gaza.
Hmm.
We need to pull sanctions on Israel.
Hmm.
Then the United States would put a veto, and we can do that.
Hmm.
Okay, but the veto is required. Okay, the second thing, we need to persuade why we are doing that, and we need to go and explain the philosophical level and explain to the Europeans, for example, that they are next, that they will be facing it next,
Hmm.
because these guys are in Europe in order to change Europe,
Yeah.
not in order to become part of Europe.
Hmm.
You see that everywhere. They want to change Europe, not to become like Europe.
Hmm.
They did not immigrate, as people said. People said that they are immigrating because their situation is not good.
Hmm.
This is only part of it. The
Hmm.
other part is they immigrate because their spiritual leaders tells them, you
That's
need to go there. This needs to be our land as well. You are the pioneers. You would go, you would settle, you would get in, and then from within we will take it over. Because the Islam sees two types of lands.
mm,
What they call Dar el Islam, which
mm,
is where the Islam is ruling,
mhm.
and Dar el Harb, which means everywhere that they don't and they need to fight to get. Fight doesn't mean always fighting with armies, tanks, and everything. It might be by infiltration into these countries and then eating them from within, which is what they are doing now and
Oh,
will keep on doing.
I see. Well, there are a lot of imams, like, just
Mhm,
doing YouTube channels,
mhm,
talking,
mhm,
and they're saying like strange things about, they always target Jews first. And then, this,
mhm.
and then, they probably say, well, yeah, there are a lot of people who say like very radical things, like, to like murder Jewish people or, but at the same time, there are imams, who, criticize as if, they're illegal, like the situation.
Yeah,
You see
but
this.
this is deceiving. This
Mm,
is deceiving.
yeah.
The goal of Islam
Mm.
is as because Islam is not just a religion; it's also a political movement.
Oh.
It's not just a religion; it's a political
Mm.
movement. The Islam controls all the aspects of your life,
Mm.
including politics.
Oh.
So deceiving is allowed
Mm.
in order to achieve Islam goals.
Mm.
Breaking up agreements like the Hudaybiyah agreement
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
is allowed by Islam
Mm.
if you feel that you are weak. So make an agreement and violate it once you feel strong again. These are things that are happening all the time,
Yeah, that's the
all the
last time
time.
you told me about it, and it made sense to me a lot. And I think
Mhm.
that's the part that are actually never told very publicly, or I mean in yeah, I like majority, but I think that that is what is happening to your country. And like,
Mhm.
that's but like actually I have seen so many terrorist attacks, like, like it might not be major, but like in I'm not just about talking about like October 7th, but there has been like terrorist attacks and like Israeli civilians die. And um I mean, these facts are not told. And like there are like constantly like Islamists trying to attack like Israel, like as you say, the country has to always defend itself the
Mhm.
whole time. And it's very hard, but like briefly, I totally agree with your idea of it's like, like I don't think that, like, just release a bad person, follow them, and just, like it sounds like, very risky at the same time. Those like, what I have to say is that, hostage deals, and just the bad person goes, like I heard, just I read yesterday that, an Israeli person was writing that, a person who killed, you know, his father is being released. And, I mean, IDF has to, eradicate all these people later. And, that, increases the risk of, more casualties. So, yeah. So
So
I,
I differentiate
mm,
between the personal unrest and feelings and all that, and the way that the state needs to behave
mm-hmm,
as a state in
mm-hmm,
order to allow it to be I think effective
mm-hmm,
in protecting its citizens.
mm-hmm,
But these are two different things.
yeah.
So while I'm very much sympathizing
Mm-hmm.
with the issue of getting back the hostages
Yes, yeah.
and with the personal stories
Mm-hmm,
that is accompanied with them and the personal tragedies
mm-hmm,
that comes along with it, which are horrible in my view.
mm-hmm,
I still think that
mm-hmm,
as a nation,
mm-hmm.
we should have acted differently
Oh,
as a nation.
mm-hmm,
But of course, that whenever you see that, your heart goes to it.
mm-hmm, yeah.
But
But yeah, that's probably true. And I think that, it has been taking so long. And I hope that
mhm,
maybe like during Trump administration, I really hope that, this, goes well for Israel, really. So,
me too, me too.
yeah, so
Great,
yeah, I mean, thank you so much. And I
you're
guess like,
welcome.
yeah, I just hope that, you just come back some other time with other topics. And yeah, I I would,
Feel free if you want my opinion on anything here in Israel and with its connection to the world or others, then feel free to contact me. And whenever I have the time, it's a great pleasure and it's a great thing so that I come to speak to some of the Japanese that are listening to that. I have a lot of good feelings, say, towards the Japanese people, the Japanese culture.
yeah,
I
that's
like
great.
Japan every
Yeah.
time that I've been there. I told you I practiced martial arts for most of
Yeah.
my life, and I have a lot of respect to the achievements of the Japanese, and so on. So I think, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
great.
very great. Yeah,
Thanks you.
it's always great pleasure to have you, and thank you very much. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank
Bye.
you. Some people might feel a little bit different, but I feel that it has a lot of psychological effect, and if we get too personal, then uh, it it is very easily trapped by some idea that should not be the main issue. And also sometimes it is difficult, but um, this is what is happening. And I hope that, well, I would say President Trump is actually, I would agree with him regarding, well, not regarding, but I would say Colonel Ranzimir is, well, at some point, it's a very difficult choice. And I would not say what is right or wrong here. I would say I did not share any secrets or any information that should not be, shared. And we are just discussing the objective views of what should, um, what 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 should be the right path. Or I mean, I'm not sure what should be done. And I'm not in politics of Israel, so I'm not going to say I'm making decisions on that. But um, I would say that, well, if I were to say, I would talk about propaganda. It's very simply made, but people will be affected by it a lot. Sadly, it's true, but that propaganda is too ridiculous to me. Anyway, I hope that you had some thoughts over our discussions, and please download my podcast, you know, and also introduce my podcast to your friends. And I hope that you keep listening to my podcasts, and please do. And it's not just I hope. Please listen to my podcast. Anyway, good night.